So a new Star Wars movie is set to hit theaters within the next 5 days or so. Spoilers, none here because I haven't seen the movie yet. But do you know what it means when a new Star Wars movie comes out? It means there's a new Star Wars movie coming out. But it does get me thinking. One of the most interesting parts about all these new entries in old franchises is the entry point for younger people to something that they've only heard about. That also gets me thinking about fans of the franchise in general. If you think about it, someone who went to the theater in 1977 saw Star Wars for the very first time, and I'm sure it was mind-blowing, as most accounts say it was in the theater at the time. But to be 10 years old in 1977 would mean you would have to have been born in 1967, which isn't unreasonable by any stretch. But here's the point that I'm trying to make. A lot of us gatekeepers, so to speak, of the franchise are 80s kids, meaning that most of us were either born right before the 80s or born in the 80s. But yet we claim to be kind of the owners of this great franchise. And then I thought about my entry into the Star Wars franchise, which kind of led me here today. So, I was born in 1983, which coincidentally is the year that The Return of the Jedi was released in theaters, which means that I hadn't seen any of these Star Wars movies until much later. I think my mom says she saw Return of the Jedi when I was in the womb still, but I'm not sure of that. She could have just been telling me that to make me feel good. But it's possible that I heard Return of the Jedi in utero. So there's that. That's exciting. But I hadn't seen Star Wars, and most people who know me, who work with me, who spend time around me, they think, you know, he's kind of a Star Wars fanatic, which to a degree I consider myself to be a big fan of the franchise. But you might be surprised to know that I did not see the original Star Wars film until I was in 5th grade. I know it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to think that that's even possible, but here's the thing. My mom and dad really weren't big fantasy sci-fi people. Star Wars wasn't really going to be their bag, and honestly, my mom would have been kind of young for Star Wars too. Well, maybe not, no. Probably though, being a late teenage girl would not have been, or even mid-teenage girl would not have been, that may not have been her bag. So we just weren't a Star Wars family. So I knew about Star Wars. I had cousins and friends who collected the action figures and played with a lot of the toys. I played with them too. To me, they were just cool alien creatures that I spent time digging in the dirt with because, you know, that's back when toys were toys and not collectibles to be kept on the shelf. So all of this ultimately is getting to this 5th grade moment when I had stayed home from school for 2 days. The first day I had this 24-hour virus of fever and chills and misery, and I was just kind of out of it. So I spent that time sleeping, as you probably would all agree is the thing to do when you're under the weather in such a way. But then the second day, the fever broke the night before, so the second day I stayed home from school again. And I was just kind of nursing the hangover tiredness, where I was feeling better, but not really up to a full day of school, plus who really wants to go back to school anyway? So I was meandering through, probably after a 2.5-hour bender of Mr. Belvedere, and I looked into the cabinet, and lo and behold, I saw a sight of a cassette tape that looked something like this. I knew it had been in there for a while, at least since the summertime. So I hadn't seen it yet. I imagine my mom probably bought this for my brother, thinking it was a movie he would like, and I don't think he had seen it either. This is a 1995 VHS release of the original movie. This is the last VHS home video that features the uncut editions of these movies. Although it does have what a lot of the old school fans don't like here on the side. It does have the subtitle, A New Hope. So there's that. But by this point, this was being sold in trilogy. So I picked this up, slid it out of the case, and let's see where I am in this tape. Oh, I was kind. I rewound this tape. Slid it into the VHS player and just let it roll. And I had an experience with it that I think a lot of people had with the original Star Wars. I loved it. It was amazing. And all these alien creatures that I never would have thought of before. Walking, talking robots. Robots that had a language of their own that other robots understood. many, many different locales and exotic places, spaceships, lasers, swords that are made out of laser beams. I mean, these were things that were all very new and foreign to me at the time. I was in love. The movie was fantastic. It was one of those experiences that I wish I could replicate again. Now, after this day of watching this movie, I had to binge the other two. The only problem was I didn't have The Empire Strikes Back. And the only one I could find in the store outside of the trilogy set, which I didn't want to buy because we already had this one, was the Return of the Jedi. So I got Return of the Jedi, brought it back, and it was the same release as this one in the same type of case, except instead of Vader's face in the front, it was Yoda's face. I brought it back, but I had to wait because I knew that The Empire Strikes Back was the second one in the series. So I went to my cousin's house, and this was my cousin Dan. We hung out in the basement room that his dad had set up into kind of a media room, and the Hoth scene at the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back blew my mind even further. So we sat there and just plowed through Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and I would say within a 2-week span in the year 1995, I experienced the Star Wars trilogy. So it's funny because a lot of people my age, I think, are protective over Star Wars because it's something they love, something they really cherish, and I understand that to a point. But it doesn't need to be taken so seriously. There's so much here to have fun with, and ultimately that's the point, I think. I would be really interested to hear what you think. Where was your introduction to the world of Star Wars? What got you started with the franchise? Is it something that you immediately took to like water and a fish, or is it something that you had to kind of grow into, or just something that didn't really work that well for you? Leave those comments below. I'd love to read them and respond to you. And thanks for joining on this ride here, this storytelling series, I guess we could call it. I'm going to just blob out bleep. I'm just going to let fly farts. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on things and my memories of things growing up, and not even really growing up, some things that could have happened within a week ago. Just telling stories and seeing how you and I relate to one another as far as our experiences with things in life. So if you enjoy this, check it out. We'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to the channel. There's more content to come. And until next time, go nerd yourself.
Nerd!